White House says flu strikes President Bush at a state dinner in Japan. The White House now says he is, quote, feeling fine.
And the deadly dangers of bringing peace to a country where war is the rule. Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. This is World Day. I'm Bobbie Battista at CNN Center in Atlanta.
And I'm Reid Collins in Washington. A normal case of flu is the White House diagnosis of what caused the President of the United States to fall ill and vomit at a state dinner in Tokyo. Mr. Bush was helped to the floor from his seat of honor as his Secret Service guard scrambled across the table and got to his aid. With Prime Minister Miyazawa and Mrs. Bush looking on, the President was assisted by the White House doctor, Burton Lee, who was present as well. Mr. Bush did not lose consciousness, and after some moments, he was up and finally being helped into his coat. We see a round of applause as he stands, shakes hands with his host, Mr. Miyazawa. He shook hands and then proceeded to make his way toward his limousine. He eschewed an ambulance, which as a precaution always stands by at state dinners like these, and instead decided he'd take his own limousine, which he did. That is the chronology of events. We're now going live to Tokyo, where it's 2 in the morning, and CNN senior White House correspondent Charles Bierbauer. Charles.
Actually just turned midnight here, Reid. It's Thursday morning, and the President, to the best of our knowledge, is still resting comfortably at Akasaka Palace. That's the official guest house here. As you pointed out, he did not need hospitalization. He returned under his own power to his own vehicle, to his own residence for the evening here. What we don't know at this point is what the President will be doing in the morning. He's already canceled a breakfast that he was to attend with Japanese businessmen. He does still have a full schedule, at least on the itinerary for Thursday here in Tokyo. We'll get a better assessment of that in the morning when the White House decides, and whether the President decides, how well he actually feels after a night's rest. Now, there are, of course, still negotiations to go on between the U.S. and the Japanese over the various trade problems that exist between the two countries, and those kinds of negotiations can go on without the President actually taking part in them. There are all sorts of delegations from various agencies and departments of the U.S. government represented here. So we're really at a stage where we've not had any more information since White House spokesman Marlin Fitzwater's briefing about 3 hours ago. The absence of information may well mean that the President is indeed resting comfortably, and we'll know more come the dawn here. Reid?
All right, thank you, Charles Bierbauer, who is live in Tokyo, where it's only midnight. Shortly after the incident, back at the state dinner now, presidential spokesman Marlin Fitzwater briefed reporters.
Dr. Lee reports tonight that the President has a case of gastroenteritis, commonly known as intestinal flu. The President was administered a dose of Tigan, T-I-G-A-N, to control nausea and has gone to bed. Dr. Lee expects him to sleep through the night. We expect the President will not attend tomorrow morning's breakfast for business leaders here at the hotel, but probably will maintain his schedule for the rest of the day.
After the President left the dinner to return to his residence and rest, Barbara Bush took over for him, and from all appearances, the President's wife charmed the Japanese hosts.
I can't explain what happened to George because it never happened before, but I'm beginning to think it's the ambassador's fault. He and George played the Emperor and the Crown Prince in tennis today, and they were badly beaten. And we Bushes aren't used to that. So he felt much worse than I thought. But General Scowcroft is going to speak for the President. And thank you very much for a wonderful visit.
So it fell to Brent Scowcroft to read the President's prepared toasts. Mrs. Bush referred to the ambassador. That's the ambassador to Japan from the United States, Mr. Armacost. We'll continue monitoring the story, and we'll update it, of course, as need be. Bobbie?
Well, to find out a little bit more about the illness that disrupted the president's trip, we're joined now by Dr. Stephen Morris. Dr. Morris is a gastroenterologist, and he's in our Atlanta bureaus this morning. Dr. Morris, the president is said to just have a common everyday stomach flu, but I think what was alarming to a lot of people was that he passed out at the state dinner. Is that common?
Yes, well, gastroenteritis can come on very suddenly. It's inflammation of the intestine and the stomach, and the onset can be very sudden and the symptoms very severe initially, although the illness is usually brief and lasts only 2 to 3 days at the most.
Is it likely to think that this illness was brought on perhaps by his heavy schedule or jet lag, or is it more viral in nature?
Virus is the most common cause, although occasionally bacteria or even food poisoning or intolerance can cause it. And I don't think the illness itself was brought on by its heavy schedule, but the severity of the symptoms and the severity of the way it affected him may have been contributed to by his very heavy schedule.
Marlon Fitzwater mentioned a few moments ago that the president was given Tegan. What is that?
Well, Tigan is what we call an antiemetic. It prevents the vomiting that is a very common symptom. Vomiting, intestinal cramps, diarrhea. These are very common symptoms of this very common illness. And he was given this medication to prevent him from throwing up. This will allow him to take in fluids, which is really the most important treatment for this, to allow him to take in fluid and salt over the next 12 to 24 hours and really replenish his strength.
The president, as we know, has Graves' disease, but we had been informed that he has not been taking medication for that recently, but he did take some Halcyon in order to help him sleep last night. Could that have contributed at all?
I doubt that very much. Since his Graves' disease appears to be under good control from the treatment he received earlier, it should really not play a role in this flu or the severity of the symptoms.
Probably sounds to me that he shouldn't have played tennis that day, wouldn't you say? I mean, well, dehydration probably didn't help.
Exactly. I think that's maybe what contributed to his passing out or slumping over, a combination of his very heavy schedule, erratic eating, and the tennis probably resulted in some element of dehydration, as we all get when we play tennis or sports, and then he couldn't replenish himself since he had this profound nausea.
You mentioned not as a possibility, but you mentioned food poisoning a few minutes ago, and the White House and the Japanese foreign minister are both denying that it was food poisoning. We don't know for sure, as that could be very embarrassing to the Japanese host, but that would certainly be something to consider as well, I would think.
Well, it's one of the causes, and certainly many of us have experienced that, but usually if that is the case, we would have expected other people who had eaten at the various dinners to also become sick. So they're probably excluding it based on that reason, which is certainly a logical reason.
All right, Dr. Stephen Morris, thank you so much for your help in diagnosing the president, so to speak, today.
My pleasure.
Reid?
Right, President Bush had been keeping up a brisk pace in Tokyo and before finally being felled by whatever it is. Among his appointments, an interview with CNN senior White House correspondent Charles Bierbauer. That interview is ahead on World Day.
CompuServe is the world's largest network of people with personal computers. CompuServe can turn your computer into a limitless source of information and resources that will simplify your work and enrich your life.
CompuServe is the best service for my money. When I needed technical advice on a new database, I got all kinds of help right online. Even which questions I should ask a programmer. The members are all so friendly. And you know, you can send faxes on CompuServe. Well, I use it to order groceries. I'd be lost without CompuServe.
Just call 1-800-522-4477 for more information. Or to join CompuServe, just call this number today and get a membership kit for only $39.95 with usage charges as low as 10 cents a minute. CompuServe. You'll never stop finding new ways it can help you.
I can even keep in touch with my nephew in Florida on CompuServe, and it costs less than a phone call.
Remember how much fun it used to be to play in the snow? Well, it still is. To visit a place where the snow is as good as it gets and all the ways to play in it have been perfected, just call 1-800-COLORADO. Get a free vacation guide, a travel discount certificate from Continental, and a chance to return to childhood.
Sore throats and colds are nothing new around here. My uncle gets a nasty cough, nasal congestion. He throws snowballs over his left shoulder. I take a Luden's Helps with menthol vapor relief. Hey, I can breathe.
Luden's, the legend that works.
Tonight,
thrust into the spotlight of Iran-Contra. Now, conservative guest host Oliver North plays the right field to Mike Kinsley's left in The Crossfire. Tonight, 7:30 Eastern on CNN.
The British Prime Minister, John Major, was quick to react to President Bush's illness. Mr. Major sent his best wishes in a communication to the White House, later telling reporters there really is nothing to worry about.
There's no need to be concerned about President Bush. We've been in touch with the White House. He played a strenuous game of tennis in the afternoon. He felt a little unwell after dinner. He's walking. As far as I understand, he's feeling a little unwell, but that's all.
How did you hear about it?
I heard about it from number 10 about 45 minutes ago.
What details have you got about it?
Well, the details I've just given you. He played a strenuous game of tennis in the afternoon. He felt a little unwell during dinner, a little unwell after dinner, and that really is all there is to it.
No cause of concern?
Mr. Bush's bout with the flu overshadowed temporarily the purpose of his trip to Japan, which was trade. Earlier in the day, talks between the president and the Japanese Prime Minister Miyazawa reportedly produced no major breakthroughs. In fact, the White House spokesman Marlin Fitzwater said the Japanese, and we quote him now, are screaming about U.S. pressures to increase auto and auto parts sales in Japan. White House officials added Japan's unlikely to ease trade restrictions very much anytime soon. While the meeting between the two leaders appeared cordial enough, Mr. Fitzwater says discussions involving business leaders from the U.S. and Japan were heated. They were held elsewhere. There was word on an accord signed by President Bush and Prime Minister Miyazawa, which would produce what is called a joint strategy for world growth. And Japan's 5 major automakers are pledged now to try to buy more U.S. auto products.
Well, before the president collapsed today, CNN's Charles Bierbauer interviewed Mr. Bush, and the president spoke about the prospects for open markets, a major goal of his trip to Asia. We bring you that conversation now.
Mr. President, you set out the litany for this trip in 3 short words, all of which were the same: jobs, jobs, and jobs. Can you go home, even though jobs are not created immediately, and say, I've gotten the job done?
I don't know that I'll ever be able to say I've gotten it done totally, but I will be able to go home and say we've made a very good start on jobs, jobs, jobs. Just the growth initiative, the growth agenda that we didn't have when we started. The growth agenda that we announced with Japan today is a good step in that direction. Because if that Japanese economy grows the way predicted, I think it will help create jobs in the United States, particularly if the second part of our trip here goes well, which is accessing Japanese markets.
When you get home, though, you still got to explain this to the people in an election year in a very political framework where the Democrats and the voters are going to say, where are these jobs? What do you tell them? Has this been in any way oversold?
I don't think so. Maybe it has in some quarters. I'll tell you what, one way not to do it is the way some of these Democrats are suggesting. Pure protectionist legislation that will shrink world markets and invite retaliation against hundreds of thousands of jobs already in existence in the United States. So we may have an active debate in this coming year on their ideas of protection, pure protection. And it's not only them, it's the far extreme on the Republican side too. And that's not the way to go. But I think we're going to see progress, and I think we've already seen some real progress.
Have you, in fact, knocked down the protection on this side of the ocean?
I don't think so. I don't think we've done it completely at all. We're denied access to certain markets, whether it's in certain agricultural products, predominantly rice, for example, but in others. But we're making headway. I mean, it's clear to me. When I went to that Toys R Us store and saw the fact that now American, you might say, supermarket concept, big department store concept, people can come in here into this market. That is jobs for America, and it benefits the Japanese consumer. And so I think I was impressed by that one yesterday, because here's a store that has just started, and they're doing very well.
Doesn't sell that many American goods, Mr. President.
They sell quite, what, 40% or 50% of their inventory? That's pretty good. And to a person making toys in the United States, I think he thinks his job is pretty important to him.
There was a fair amount of Japan bashing coming in here. In some respects, maybe they've almost become the new enemy in the absence of the Soviet Union. How do you dispel that? And in fact, how do you make it go away from some of the people you brought with you?
there is a certain ugliness in Japan bashing. And I tried to set the proper tone on that back at Pearl Harbor on December 7th. And incidentally, the Japanese were very generous in their assessment of setting a tone where we compete on a business basis, not with some subterranean prejudice in the mode. So the way you lay it to rest, though, is to be successful in your quest for more access to the Japanese market, and that in turn inevitably means more American jobs. So I think that's the way to do it, rather than kind of grumbling about it and talking about protection legislation.
Well, are you and Lee Iacocca playing good cop, bad cop on this trip?
Well, regrettably, I haven't seen what he said on this trip, but if you want me to comment on it, I'll be glad to do it.
Well, he has been very harsh about the trade levels for cars over here. Continues to insist that they can't get them.
Listen, no. Well, if that's the case, no. I'd like to see many more American cars in this market. I can't believe that our cars aren't good in terms of quality, aren't good in terms of size, and so I would like to think that one of the things that will come from our business people talking to their business people is more sales of American cars here. If that's what he's saying, I'm for that.
Shouldn't those American car makers, they'll be looking more at their own operation, and the question is why they're so inefficient back home?
I think to the degree there's inefficiency in production, any place, the producer ought to take a hard look at that. We must be able to compete. But that gets you into a little bit of a longer range approach, and that's why I strongly favor our approach on more research and development support, why our Education 2000 program is so vitally important. But yes, we can't just wring our hands. If we're non-competitive, we've got to do something about our competitiveness.
Can I ask you one quick last question on a separate subject? Next week it'll be 1 year from the start of the war against Iraq and Saddam Hussein. You've mentioned him at every stop on this trip. Do you feel that that's something that you've not yet completed?
No, I think we completed what we wanted under the United Nations resolution. But the fact that he is still there, brutalizing his people and trying to make a mockery of the United Nations resolutions troubles me deeply. So it's an open question. And I think if the Iraqi people would take matters into their own hands and get him out of there, you would have instant improved relations, not just with our country, but every country I've visited. And we would take a leadership role in trying to help Iraq. But I'm not going to have anything to do with it as long as that brutal dictator is in Baghdad, brutalizing his own people and making a lot of stupid rhetoric about the rest of the world, going after the able president of Egypt the way he did the other day. I'm used to it myself, so it doesn't mean anything. You know, we heard all that during the war when we kicked him, but here he's talking again about the mother of battles, and he couldn't even put on a military parade. He's been kicked out. I mean, the military force is decimated, but he still has that security apparatus that enables him to brutalize his own people. So my message is, and will continue to be, for the Iraqi people, you figure out how to get him out of there, and you will have instantly improved relations, both economically, globally, of every way, with the United States and your Arab brothers and everyone else.
Mr. President, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And there we saw President Bush in an interview with CNN's Charles Bierbauer just hours before the state dinner, at which he was stricken with what is called the flu or gastroenteritis and had to leave the dinner and is now resting. And we'll have more in a minute.
Across the world, phones are ringing. Who's calling?
Hello, Mom. It's Jonathan. I'm getting married.
People who are saving money with the AT&T Reach Out World Plan. They're calling friends and family in over 50 countries and areas, talking longer and saving an average of 20%. Even if you spend only $12 a month on international calls, sign up and start saving. Whether you call across the Atlantic, the Pacific, to Canada, or to Mexico.
Did you see the phone bill?
Yeah. Hola, te adora.
AT&T makes it easy to save on the calls you already made. You'll even get a 5% discount on AT&T state-to-state calls made from your home. Call 1-800-445-3231 and sign up now. Because with this plan, when a loved one is far away, you can go ahead and call.
I miss her, too. We could call her in Tokyo, huh? You want to call Grandma?
And the longer you talk, the more you'll save. No need to wait for the right time to call either. You have over 120 hours a week to save. The AT&T Reach Out World Plan. With these savings and all the quality and service you expect from AT&T, it's our best value in international calling.
I'll call you. We'll call you.
So before you make your next international call 1-800-445-3231 and start saving an average of 20%. All for only $3 a month. Across the world, phones are ringing. Who's calling? Soon it may be you. Sign up now for the AT&T Reach Out World Plan. Call 1-800-445-3231.
Let's now review the bidding of what has happened in Tokyo, where it is just a little bit past midnight now. A normal case of flu is the phrase the White House uses to describe what caused the president to fall ill and vomit at the state dinner in Tokyo. Mr. Bush was aided to the floor from his seat of honor as his Secret Service guard had scrambled across the table to get to his aid. Prime Minister Miyazawa is trying to assist, as we see. Mrs. Bush is looking on. The president also was assisted by the White House Dr. Burton Lee, who, as a matter of course, was also a guest at the dinner. At no time, we are told, did the president lose consciousness. And after some moments, we see him up and being helped into his suit jacket, shaking hands with his host, the Prime Minister of Japan, his Secret Service aide helping him into the jacket. A bit disheveled, but apparently none the worse for wear. His doctor feeling that it's medically advisable for the president to be allowed to stand, move, and even walk. Now, he ignores the standby ambulance and was taken by limousine at his request to his guest quarters on the palace grounds. There he was given what is described as an antiemetic, that is to stop any vomiting. Tigan is the prescription name of it, or rather the over-the-counter name of it. And the president, we are told by the White House now, is resting. In the morning, he's going to miss a businessman's meeting, but otherwise, the White House says he feels good. And that's it.
All right, in other news now, Croatian radio says the European community is suspending monitoring efforts in Yugoslavia. This a day after an EC helicopter was shot down by a Federal Army MiG fighter, killing all 5 observers on board. The Defense Ministry says the head of the Air Force has been suspended. The UN envoy to Yugoslavia, Cyrus Vance, tells the New York Times that he suspects the attack was provoked by hardliners who do not want the EC or the UN to intervene in the war between the Federal Army and Croatian forces. He predicts the latest ceasefire will hold despite the shootdown. There has been no shortage of weapons in the Yugoslav fighting despite an international arms embargo. Now there are allegations that Chile may have supplied weapons to Croatia. Chilean officials deny any involvement in illegal arms sales, but as CNN's Lucia Newman reports, an investigation is underway.
Over the last decade, Chile's weapons industry has quietly but firmly entered the international armament market, manufacturing and even inventing high-tech arms and missiles. But the disclosure of an illegal arms sales to Croatia has tarnished not only the prestige of the Army's weapons factory, FAMAI, but of Chile itself.
This greatly damages our international image because, as everybody knows, there is an embargo against arms weapons to be sold to Yugoslavia. And this was done without the knowledge of the Chilean authorities.
5 weeks ago, $6 million worth of weapons, such as these, supposedly sold and shipped by FAMAI to Sri Lanka, were intercepted in Budapest on their way to Croatia. According to informed sources, Chilean authorities were tipped off by United States intelligence amid concern that some of the weapons were manufactured under U.S. license.
Some of that information tells us that in all there would be 6 or 5 shipments of weapons to Croatia. and one of which was found in Hungary.
No one knows for sure if this is the first time Chile has violated an international arms ban, since during 17 years of military dictatorship, the activities of the Army's weapons factory were a closely guarded secret. Chile's civilian government, embarrassed by the arms scandal, has appointed a special prosecutor to investigate what it calls a complex conspiracy. Although the FAMI factory was the channel under which the weapons were sold, there's strong suspicion that high-ranking Army officers sympathetic to Croatia were behind the illegal sale.
That is under investigation, and then will be one of the basic points to clear by the judges and the judiciary system.
It won't be easy. Despite its obvious ties to FAMI, the army of former dictator General Augusto Pinochet, who is still commander-in-chief, refuses to acknowledge any responsibility in the scandal. Nearly 2 years of democratic rule in Chile has only made Pinochet more zealously protective of his men in uniform. Even if high-ranking officers are found guilty, the most they will get is a fine, thanks to Chile's Arms Control Act, which was written by the previous Pinochet regime. All of which gives the impression that when it comes to military matters, illegal or not, it's still the Army that's calling the shots here. Lucia Newman, CNN, Santiago.
Have discovered a flaw in eggs. They're extremely high in cholesterol, and a diet high in cholesterol and fat can contribute to the risk of heart disease. Nutritionists at Fleischmann's have found a way to overcome this flaw with Fleischmann's Egg Beaters, the only one that's 99% real egg with zero cholesterol and zero saturated fat. Next time you love an egg, crack open a carton. Fleischmann's Egg Beaters, the great tasting egg without a flaw.
Something's waiting inside the powerful 486 SX computer. A technology that will make it even more powerful. We call it Room for the Future. Introducing built-in upgradability. Check into it. From Intel, the computer inside.
Live so comfortable. On sale now.
Won't anything stop dry skin itch fast?
Lanacane shuts off every itch, like a switch, fast. Only Lanacane works on contact with itch nerves that cause every itch. These lotions can't.
Lanacane does shut off the itch, like a switch, fast.
I'm CNN meteorologist Valerie Voss. For the last few days, we've been talking about 2 tropical systems in the Pacific. Now there are 3. I'll have the complete world weather tour at about 50 past the hour. Right now, World Day continues.
All right, Valerie, thanks. And once again, repeating our top story, the president falling ill at a state dinner in Tokyo, but the White House diagnosis is that he is suffering from a common case of the stomach flu and that he should be fine in a day or so. Just ahead on World Day, we'll have a report on an imperial city of Russia that faces difficult times while plagued by a painful past. Stay with us.
World Day continues, followed by Day Watch after this local commercial break, next on CNN.
Late night. To you, it's just a TV show. To us, it's a living hell.
It's a TV viewing experience.
Weeknights at 7 Eastern on A&E.
Charlie Robinson was used to taking chances. He just wasn't used to losing.
So because your brother lost his future, you're gonna throw yours away too?
Now it's time to move on.
You hired Charlie Robinson to drive the truck?
And move out.
We're making a run for it. He's got my damn car.
Stephen Bauer. Did you ride? Cindy Gibb.
God, that was...
When you're stealing thunder, you better drive like lightning. A USA World Premiere movie.
This is CNN.
Now checking our top story on World Day, the White House says that President Bush now is resting after having been stricken with a bout of apparently the flu. He vomited and collapsed at a state dinner in Japan. President is expected to continue some of his schedule tomorrow. That's not entirely certain, though. CNN's Taylor Henry is standing by now at the Akasaka Palace in Tokyo. And, Taylor, you can tell us the latest.
Reid, we're told the president is inside the guest palace sleeping and doing fine. Mrs. Bush is also inside. They're in for the night. We're told that a doctor examined President Bush and Bush was found to be okay, that White House spokesman Marlin Fitzwater told reporters earlier tonight that the president is indeed suffering from the flu, that in fact he has been complaining of jet lag on this trip, and that he had been prescribed the drug Halcyon to help him sleep. A crowd of reporters and news cameramen is standing vigil here looking for any sign of the unusual, but so far tonight there has been none. It was about 4 hours ago that Bush himself arrived here. He was followed by his wife about 45 minutes later, and then after that 2 other cars showed up, went into the main entrance here at the guest palace. One of those cars believed to be carrying a senior Japanese government official. Those 2 cars left a short while later. Other than that, no sign of anything unusual. We're told the president and Mrs. Bush are in for the night, and everything is fine.
Taylor, we're given to understand that the White House has sort of put a lid on things, which means that there'll be no more information forthcoming. Do we know when next we'll hear some information?
Reid, that would likely be coming tomorrow, I would expect. We don't expect anything more tonight. It's past midnight Tokyo time, and we're not expecting any more information here tonight. We are told, though, that if anything unexpected develops, that Keio University Hospital is just a very short distance from where I am standing now, and if something unexpected were to happen and the president had to be rushed to the hospital, that could happen in a very short time indeed.
All right, thank you, Taylor Henry, live from the Akasaka Palace in Tokyo. Bobbie?
We'll be talking with CNN's medical correspondent Andrew Holtz in just a few minutes about the president's symptoms. But first, let's check in with Deborah Marchini at the business desk in New York, where the president's misfortune had some effect on the stock market this morning. Deborah?
Thank you, Bobbie. Well, on Wall Street, the blue chips are lower. Some traders say, though, it has less to do with the president's medical condition than their own financial condition. Investors are finally taking some profits after 12 winning sessions out of the past 13. The Dow had been down as much as 23 points in the early going, but right now it's down only 4 points at a level of 3,200. Volume on the big board continues very heavy, 62 million shares traded already. Decliners are running ahead of advancers by a nearly 2-to-1 margin. The broader and secondary markets, all of the key indices are lower along with the Dow. Sharp declines on major stock markets overseas, concerns about the British economy and corporate profits initially weighing on the Financial Times 100 share index. The FT right now is down 34 points at 2448. A sharp decline overnight in Tokyo as well. The Nikkei average lost 851 points, or 3.6% of its value, to close at 22,715. The U.S. dollar is slightly higher right now. It had lost some ground on news that President Bush was sick, but it's come back. News of his return to a stable condition. The dollar's up 1 1/4 cents against the British pound now. It's gained 3/4 of the yen against the Japanese currency and is up 2/3 of a pfennig against the German mark. Bond prices have also recovered from an earlier decline. Right now, the Treasury's 30-year bond is down just 2/32 in price. The yield is 7.39%. In other news, Iraq is seeking looser conditions from the United Nations to resume oil sales. UN officials are meeting with an Iraqi delegation in Vienna today. Oil prices have recently been falling on speculation that Iraqi oil will return to the markets, creating even greater supply. Right now in New York trading, a barrel of light sweet crude is down another 28 cents. It's selling for $18.41 a barrel. And that is the latest in business news. One last check of the market before we go, and it shows the Dow Industrials to be up now, about 2.5 points. I'm Deborah Marchini from the CNN Business News Desk in New York.
This stock market update is brought to you by Mitsubishi Montero, a luxury car with the luxury of four-wheel drive.
The same bold engineering that made the Mitsubishi Diamante such a successful luxury performance sedan has now taken automotive luxury in an entirely different direction, introducing the all-new Mitsubishi Montero, a luxury automobile whose luxuries include state-of-the-art four-wheel drive. The 1992 Montero by Mitsubishi. The word is getting around.
For those of you who have been reluctant to wear a hearing aid, Miracle Ear has more great news. If you have trouble hearing in noisy situations, the exciting Miracle Ear Clarifier may be your answer. The Clarifier features a special filter that automatically reduces background noise.
In a restaurant situation, it picks up the noises I want to hear, but the other noises are just moved off into the background.
If you or someone you know thinks they may be suffering from hearing loss, call Miracle Ear at this number and receive helpful information.
It really makes a lot of difference in your way of hearing and in your way of life.
Call this number. Miracle Ear will send you a booklet on better hearing, plus a coupon for a free hearing test. Call today. Learn about all the good news from Miracle Ear.
A lot of people don't even know you got it, especially the one I got, the design that I got.
Call this number. Find out if Miracle Ear can help you.
Tonight, former President Richard Nixon talks about the end of the Cold War, the controversy over JFK, the upcoming presidential race, and more. Richard Nixon tonight on Larry King Live, 9 Eastern on CNN.
Again, for those viewers who have just joined us, the White House says that the president is resting now after being stricken with a bout of the flu. He vomited and collapsed at a state dinner in Japan today. The president is expected to continue his trade talks tomorrow. CNN's medical correspondent Andrew Holtz joins us now to talk a little bit more about the president's symptoms, because there seems to be an awful lot of chit-chat, speculation, whatever, about the fact that the president collapsed, which is not necessarily a normal symptom of having a gastrointestinal problem.
Well, we haven't heard directly on the cause of his collapse, and in fact, perhaps his doctors aren't 100% sure exactly why he did slump down and faint as he appeared to do. But in talking with other medical experts, this kind of thing can often happen with a kind of inflammation that is related to gastroenteritis, that or following vomiting, there can be a nerve reaction that then can slow the heartbeat, cause a loss of blood pressure, and a brief fainting spell. And some of the doctors say that's just what President Bush looked like, according to the videotapes that they have been able to view. And it really can make you look awful, because with the low blood pressure, you get this ashen look, and then things do come back to normal rather quickly. So somebody can feel very bad for a short period of time and then rebound from this very quickly. There is the underlying question of what causes the inflammation of the stomach and intestines, and we'll have to see exactly what possibly did cause that original condition.
We were talking earlier about how it's almost like having a panic attack, and people that have had that sort of thing know what we're talking about. It's, you know, when you're in a situation like that and you begin to feel sick, this can also have an effect, physiological effect on the body, and make it even worse.
That's right. Stress, as well as vomiting or nausea, it can have a very strong physical effect. That could be what happened here. Also, the president has been crossing a lot of time zones, doing a lot of flying, and that puts stress on the body. So he apparently has been working pretty hard, and may have had some sort of disease catch up with him as well, that then brought about this fainting attack.
There was some mention this morning of the possibility of food poisoning. The White House and the Japanese Foreign Ministry are both denying that, but nonetheless, that is something obviously to be considered.
Well, just looking at the medical texts and talking with doctors, that can be a possible cause of gastroenteritis. It can be a virus, it can be a bacteria, which could be caused by infection from one person to another, or a bacteria could be in food. Now, these are all just possible causes, and until all the various reasons are checked out, we won't know for sure. And in fact, in a lot of these cases, since it can pass rather quickly, there may not be any extensive check, or may be no way to find out exactly what caused it. Maybe one of those things that just comes and goes away.
All right, CNN's Andrew Holtz, thanks again. Reid?
Right, and baseball's Hall of Fame is going to open the doors to 2 new members in 1992. We'll have a look at who these men are, as well as all of today's sports news just ahead on World Day.
Fleischmann's Margarine asks, what is good? Oh, that's good. Real good. And that's very good. Fleischmann's, of course, that's good. And will you look at that? Oh, there you go. That's better than good. Oh, boy. Fleischmann's Margarine. Have you been good to yourself today? That's good. Fleischmann's, be good to yourself.
Your perception of German luxury cars is about to do a 180. The car 3 of Germany's top automotive publications chose as best in this class was neither Mercedes nor BMW, but the all-new Audi 100. The all-new Audi 100. First, at last.
Ricola, the all-natural herb cough drop imported from Switzerland. Ricola has been soothing throats and relieving coughs naturally for over 60 years.
Imagine election coverage that offered straight talk on candidates, their voting records, their stand on issues. Imagine election coverage that cut through the familiar rhetoric, mudslinging, and negative advertising. Imagine election coverage that's informative, easy to find, and simple to understand. This year, don't imagine, watch Campaign USA 92, a different kind of coverage, only on CNN.
Time we got the World Day weather forecast. For that, let's go to CNN's Valerie Voss. Valerie?
Well, Reid, there's been talk lately of a developing El Nino in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Peru, which of course affects the weather around the entire world. And usually what it does is cause increased stormy activity in some sections of the central and southern Pacific. And it's very interesting to note that today we have 3 tropical systems to point out to you. The first in the northern Pacific region is Typhoon Axel, 70 knots, moving through Micronesia, and it has affected the Marshall Islands in the last day or 2. Tropical Cyclone Betsy is in the South Pacific, also supporting winds of 70 knots. That's about 80 miles an hour, moving through Melanesia at this time. And then we have a new system developing. Tropical Cyclone Mark is in the Gulf of Carpentaria, north of Australia, with winds of 35 knots. I do believe that in this part of the world, this system is sometimes referred to as a Willy Willy. Let's take a look at Pacific conditions right now. Conditions 1200 Greenwich Mean Time. You do see our 3 tropical systems. You see a frontal system off the coast of Australia, producing a few rain showers on the southeast coastline and also over the South Island of New Zealand. There are scattered showers and thunder showers across Indonesia and sections of the tropical areas. A low pressure center that has moved across Japan, still producing some rain showers through there, back to Korea and over to Taiwan. Another low pressure center in the vicinity of Tibet, producing rain and snow across that region. Let's move on in our tour now to the South American continent. 1200 Greenwich Mean Time conditions, scattered showers and thunderstorms, especially across Brazil, Bolivia, and Paraguay, with a low pressure region, and a frontal system across Chile and Argentina, bringing some rain showers to the southern sections of those 2 nations as well, while high pressure influences northern sections of Chile and Argentina. And our next stop is the African continent, where conditions have been quiet. A frontal system over the northwest coast, though, bringing just a few scattered showers, mostly just cloudiness to that region. Also a few scattered showers across south-central parts of Africa. High pressure is situated over the Sudan and also over South Africa, but a frontal system lies just to the south of South Africa. Our conditions are for 1200 Greenwich Mean Time, Casablanca, Tunis, Banjul, and Cape Town. And our final stop in the tour is the European continent. Low pressure along the coast of Norway and over northern sections of the United Kingdom, producing rain showers with snow farther to the north. There are rain showers as well scattered along the frontal system as it stretches down through sections of the Iberian Peninsula. Rain showers have been reported around Lisbon and also Madrid and into southern sections of France. Fog is lingering over central and eastern parts of Europe with high pressure over southern Italy. Our conditions are for 1200 Greenwich Mean Time, and our forecasts are for some specific European cities for Thursday. That's our CNN weather tour. We hope it's a great day, whatever your weather and wherever you are. World Day continues with Bobbie Battista.
All right, Valerie, thanks. Well, there are 2 new inductees into the Baseball Hall of Fame, but not enough write-ins for one of them. Here's McKay.
That's right, Bobbie. In fact, it's going to be a summer of celebration for a couple of Major League players, not Pete Rose. In August, the Baseball Hall of Fame will swing its doors open for Tom Seaver and Rollie Fingers. The pitchers make up the class of '92. Seaver was a shoo-in even before the ballots were tallied Tuesday night. The 3-time Cy Young winner is a Hall of Famer in his first year of eligibility, picking up a whopping 98.8% of the vote, breaking the previous record held by Ty Cobb. Tom Terrific's career spanned 2 decades. It began with a stop with the New York Mets and included swings through Cincinnati, Chicago, and Boston. Seaver holds the Major League record for most consecutive strikeouts in a game with 10. Rollie Fingers is baseball's all-time save king, and he's now headed to the Hall. Fingers pitched in the bigs for 17 years, beginning in Oakland. That included stops in San Diego and Milwaukee before Fingers called it quits. Rollie was eligible for induction last year, but had to wait, and boy, was it worth it.
Last year, everybody was saying that you're in, and I think I started listening to them, and this year I didn't do that. I just said, you know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, you know, I'll wait till next year. But I think it's a big step for relief pitching. 40 years ago, you know, I wouldn't be standing here. But the game has really changed now, and I think there's a lot of pitchers, a lot of relief pitchers now. There's 4 or 5 guys: Jeff Reardon, Goose Gossage, Lee Smith, Bruce Sutter. All these guys have got 300 saves or more, and you know, I think it's going to possibly open a door for them.
The world's top-ranked men's tennis player hasn't been on the court engaged in singles competition for almost 2 months now, and the long layoff has taken its toll. Stefan Edberg lost an exhibition match in Australia Wednesday to American Michael Chang. The American beat the Swede in straight sets. Edberg has been hobbled by knee and wrist injuries recently. We will roll through the Tuesday Sports Scoreboard now. And that's a check of World Day Sports. Jim Huber has another sports update for you in a couple of hours. Reid?
Mark, a city of resplendence and resilience is put to the test again. The people of St. Petersburg trying to make a new start while staving off hunger. We'll get a report when World Day continues.
Gillette presents Sensor, the system, the technology that will change the way you shave forever. Sensor, twin blades set on springs to read your face and respond. Independent suspension to sense and adjust to every curve of your face. No other razor comes close. Gillette Sensor, for the best shave a man can get.
They say diversify to reduce risk, but I'm no financial expert.
I know how to build a house, not a portfolio.
How do you judge each investment? When to buy or sell?
And who has time to follow the market?
Because most people can't be masters at everything, Fidelity Investments created the Fidelity Asset Manager. In one easy mutual fund, it seeks to diversify among and across stocks, bonds, and money markets. And Fidelity professionals carefully watch your investment for you, gradually adjusting your assets to keep pace with changes in the market.
It's designed for those of us who aren't financial experts.
Call now for this free fact kit on the Fidelity Asset Manager.
I called. You should too. There's no pressure to invest. There's no sales charge either. All your money works for you.
Diversification made simple. Call 1-800-356-8100 for your free fact kit. Fidelity Investments. Common sense, uncommon results. Share price, yield, and return will vary.
Your time is valuable, so don't waste it standing in line. Mailboxes, etc. is open when you need us, and you'll be helped promptly. Get stamps, a private mailbox, which you can also check by phone, and professional packing and supplies. You can also receive and send packages or overnight mail via UPS. Now at over 1,400 convenient locations.
During the Gulf War, the precision airstrike was the cornerstone of Allied strategy. But the town of Fallujah, 60 miles west of Baghdad, was hit, the British say, when one of their bombs accidentally went off course. CNN's Rick Salinger reports from Iraq.
At first glance, Fallujah today appears a normal town, 60 miles west of Baghdad. Only the name, the Martyrs Market, and the date, February 13th, 1991, give a clue to the chapter of Fallujah in the Gulf War.
Enemy, bloodshed. Bloodshed. Why? 131 men killed. Why? Why?
What happened here was a mistake, one that took 131 lives by Iraqi count. Dozens more were wounded. It was late in the afternoon when the destruction came. British Jaguars and Tornadoes were on a mission to bomb a bridge over the Euphrates River, what they considered a vital supply route used by the Iraqis. 4 bombs were dropped. The first hit its mark. 2 others fell into the river. But the 4th veered off course, some 800 yards off course into the center of Fallujah. The plane's video camera recorded the smoke in the lower right-hand portion of the screen. The market was crowded at the time. The Iraqis hurried reporters and cameramen to the scene to show the world what had occurred. After an investigation, the British acknowledged the mistake.
There are obviously veins on the bomb that steer it down the laser cone, homing in on the target, and quite clearly in this case, they were not working.
He said if there were civilian casualties, they were sorry. In a war in which the Allies boasted a pinpoint surgical bombing, what happened here can be likened to a tragic case of malpractice that cost more than 100 lives. Nearly a year later, the buildings have been reconstructed, but not all the evidence of what happened here has been erased. People crowded around us to show us what the Allies' bomb had done to them.
We felt safe because the coalition countries promised not to hit the residential areas and civilians.
Uthman Ali lost his father, brother, and cousin. He says the bomb's margin of error was too great. It must have been deliberate. Many survived the bombing, but lost limbs. Many of them were children. Among them, Abdullah Ali. He lost both his legs. Now he spends most of his time at home in a wheelchair. He says he feels his legs are still with him, but he can't go to school and can't play with his friends. This market has been rebuilt, but the scars still remain. Rick Salinger, CNN, Fallujah, Iraq.
The great changes taking place in Russia come with a heavy price to pay, longer lines for food when there is food, and even the threat of widespread hunger. CNN's Christiane Amanpour reports from St. Petersburg, the once imperial city with a painful past.
This city knows all about hunger. An eternal flame burns beside the mass graves of those who died of starvation during the Nazis' 900-day siege of Leningrad in World War II. The young come to pay their respects, Those old enough to remember are afraid.
I think it will be really bad. Can you imagine potatoes being 3 times more expensive? Even if we eat only bread and potatoes, we can hardly make ends meet.
Outside the metro stations and at the markets, St. Petersburg's new paupers are selling off their own belongings, clothes, trinkets, and even a toilet seat, trying to raise a few extra rubles. City officials admit they won't make it through the winter or even the next 30 days without help.
We have only half the food supplies we need for the coming month. We're expecting aid from abroad, and we're very thankful for whatever we get.
Handouts, large and small, are being delivered to the hardest hit, to an old woman who must support herself and her invalid son. She's pathetically grateful for this gift from Germany. She says it'll last her all winter. In the stores, the prices are high and there's not much to buy. Outside, the lines last well after dark.
I spend my whole day working hard, and I come here and there is nothing. I've been to 3 stores already. It's intolerable.
It's going through hard times now, but this city has a remarkable history as the center of change and new beginnings. It's where Russian imperialism died and Soviet communism was born. And now it's trying to lead a capitalist revival, trying to turn itself into a haven for international investment. City officials want to turn St. Petersburg into a mecca for culture and tourism. They are giving her beautiful old face a lift, setting up joint ventures, about 500 so far, trying to sell off state stores, restaurants and factories to private investors, and trying to change the work ethic.
The reason we live so badly is because we work so badly. As soon as we start working better, our life will be better.
But even under the best of circumstances, officials say it'll take at least 10 to 15 years before stability and real economic growth take hold. Christiana Manpour, CNN, St. Petersburg.
Tomorrow on World Day, we'll be talking to adventurer Will Steger about crossing Antarctica by foot and dog sled.
And that is our World Day report today. Stay with CNN now for complete coverage of President Bush's illness in Tokyo. I'm Reid Collins in Washington.
And I'm Bobbie Battista at CNN Center in Atlanta. Day Watch is up next. Now here's Bob Kane with a preview.
Thank you, Bobbie. And coming up next for our U.S. viewers, as expected, a complete update on our lead story, the status of President Bush's health. Day Watch next.
Coming up, Day Watch, followed by Cryer and Company, after a word from your local cable system here on CNN.